the life of Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, and bil khusus his imamat, especially the term of his imamat, lasted about 20 years. But this 20 years in our history of the religion is a very important period of time. And we see that the work that was done by Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam in this 20 years was a monumental piece of work. And so from this point of view, we should take this opportunity to, inshallah, open up for you a new dimension to the activities of Imam Rida and to the movement of Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam during his lifetime. This verse that I read to you in the khutbah is from Surah Yusuf, verse number 54, where we know the story of Hazrat Yusuf. Just to paraphrase very quickly, we know that Yusuf was sold by his brothers into slavery. And he was taken into Misr, into Egypt, and was sold to one of the high-ranking officials of the king of Egypt at that time. In the household of this official, we see that Hazrat Yusuf undergoes some trials and tribulations. And to make a long story short, he ends up in prison. He has this gift of interpreting dreams, and this gift of interpreting dreams eventually sets him free from prison. And I'm just skimming over the story very quickly. We know the story already. When the king of Egypt, when the Pharaoh of Egypt summons Yusuf and tells Yusuf, okay, you've interpreted this dream for me and the interpretation is acceptable to me. Now tell me about what happened with you and that group of ladies. Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam explains his position, and when the truth becomes clear to the king says this statement to Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam that we mentioned in the khutbah, where the king says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and the king said, bring him to me. I will choose him for myself. So when he had spoken with him, when the king had spoken with Yusuf, he said, surely you are in our presence today an honorable and faithful one. The tafsir of this particular verse of Quran makes it clear that when the king of Egypt said this statement to Hazrat Yusuf, he was giving Hazrat Yusuf power in Egypt. In actuality, the tafsir states that what he was giving to Hazrat Yusuf was his position as his chief advisor and basically the number 2 man in the entire kingdom. We see that in the following verse, Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he speaks up. He said, place me in authority over the treasuries of the land. Surely I am a good keeper, knowing well. When the king of Egypt offers Hazrat Yusuf the leadership, the second in command, the position as chief advisor, Yusuf says, no, don't give me that position. Put me instead in charge of the treasuries, in charge of the collecting of the taxes and the running of the financial affairs. Tafsir of Quran says this, that Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, he made this choice for 2 reasons. Number 1, he did not want himself to be implicated in any of the wrongdoings of the Egyptian state. So if he had accepted a high position in the Egyptian state, second only to the king, it may have caused him to be implicated in the crimes and in the tyrannies and in the shortcomings of the Egyptian state at large. But he took the position of being the chief treasurer of the land while maintaining his position and as an advisor to the king for 2 reasons. Number 1, because when you deal with the money, the tax collection, and you do this justly, and you do this righteously in the land, this exonerates you from any wrongdoing. And the second reason is that when you control the purse strings of the kingdom, you do in fact control the kingdom as well. So Yusuf chooses this position, chooses for himself this situation, so as to exonerate himself from the evils of the state, and so as to still have some influence on the state. Why do we mention the story of Hazrat Yusuf, and especially this portion of the story of Hazrat Yusuf, when we're talking about Imam Rida? Because one of the least understood aspects of the life of Imam Rida is his acceptance to be the Wali Ahad of Ma'mun Mal'un. This Ma'mun, I'm sure you are aware of the story, that this Ma'mun, the Khalifa, one of the Khalifas during the time of Hazrat Imam Rida, he came upon a plan. One day he wakes up, he sends a messenger to Imam Rida and summons Imam Rida to him. Imam Rida has to pack up his everything, and we'll mention this in a moment, and he goes to go in to see Ma'mun. When he arrives, Ma'mun tells him, I'm tired of Khilafat. I don't want Khilafat anymore. I'm giving the whole thing over to you. Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, he refuses this position of being the Khalifa. In fact, two of the officers of Ma'mun, they were there, and they later relate, in another incident, they said, look, we were there when the Khilafat was offered to Ali ibn Musa Rida, and we never saw the Khilafat treated so low as the day when it was offered free and openly to Imam Rida, and he refused it. When Imam Rida alayhi salam, he refuses the Khilafat, then the response comes from Ma'mun that then you have to accept the Wali Ahad, the successorship. You have to be my successor. Imam Rida also flatly refuses this position. And Ma'mun, he makes a reference, a veiled threat. He says, you remember that Umar had created a consultative committee, and your father was part of that? Your grandfather was part of that? Do you remember the rule that Umar put there? That if everybody doesn't agree, then we kill those who disagree. This is your situation also. So in this way, Ma'mun was giving a veiled threat to the Imam. Now, I'm running over this story very quickly with you because this is the point I want to get to. Traditionally, when we read this story and when we hear it from the ulama, we're told that this is the incident that forces Imam Rida to accept the Wali Ahad. That he refused Wali Ahad, but he was forced to accept it because his life was threatened. Send the salawat and we'll examine this issue, inshallah. From Karbala to the acceptance of the Wali Ahad by Imam Rida is a period of about 140 years. During this 140 years, members of Ahlul Bayt, the Imams, had pursued a consistent and unified policy of establishing the government of Allah on earth. Now, granted, although all of them had the same aim and the same goal, each of them pursued this aim with different tactics and different strategies. So, for instance, when the deen was in danger of being wiped out and being destroyed, you see that Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam sits down silently while his position is usurped and misused and the people are oppressed by those means. But Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he's patient, he endures, he puts himself in a position to advise, and he bears this patiently. We see that with Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, the same similar tactic, that the people are put under the test to accept the wilayat of Ahlul Bayt. They fail that test, and this is how we end up at Karbala. Now at Karbala, and this is something that's very important to our discussion this evening, we see that Yazid demands bay'ah, demands allegiance from Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam.